Ferrari has just completed the first Formula One laps around Madrid's new Madrid circuit, and the SF-26 may have exposed its biggest strength, and its most dangerous weakness, at the exact same time. This was only a restricted filming day. Limited mileage. Special tires. No full qualifying run. No complete race simulation. But Ferrari still became the first Formula One team to collect real track data from the Madrid, only days after Lewis Hamilton said a setup mistake at the British Grand Prix made his magic disappear after sprint pole. Now Spa is next. And that is where this gets serious. Because Ferrari may already have the speed. The alarming part is that the performance could exist inside a window so narrow that one wrong adjustment, one temperature change, or one unstable corner could make everything vanish again. The key was not the lap time. It was whether the real car finally matched Ferrari's simulation. If it did, Hamilton and Charles Leclerc may be heading to Spa with a far more dangerous car than anyone expected. If it did not, Ferrari may have uncovered a design problem that no headline lap can hide. And the first clue from Madrid changes the entire story. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why Ferrari's first laps at the Madrid mattered, you have to stop thinking about speed for a moment. Because a filming day is not a normal Formula One test. Ferrari could not spend the entire session chasing lap time. The mileage was restricted. The tires were not the standard Grand Prix tires. There was no full qualifying simulation, no complete race run, and no unlimited freedom to test every setup direction. So the stopwatch could not give Ferrari the answer it really needed. But the car could. The first lap was the moment months of computer work met real asphalt. Before that moment, Ferrari's engineers could predict almost everything. They could model how the airflow should move around the SF-26. They could estimate how the suspension should react under braking. They could calculate how the balance should shift when the driver turned into a corner. They could simulate thousands of laps without ever leaving the factory. But simulation is still a prediction. The real car does not care what the computer promised. It reacts to bumps, wind, temperature, tire movement, surface changes, and tiny driver corrections that no model can reproduce perfectly. That is why the first lap is so revealing. Not because it proves the car is fast. Because it shows whether Ferrari truly understands what it has built. Imagine designing a key from perfect measurements. Every angle looks right. Every number says it should work. Then you place it inside the lock. If it turns smoothly, the design earns trust. If it catches, even slightly, every measurement has to be questioned. Ferrari's first Madrid lap was that first turn of the key. Did the front respond exactly when the driver expected? Did the rear remain stable under braking? Did the balance stay predictable as the car changed direction? Did the SF-26 behave the way Ferrari's simulation said it would? Or did the real track reveal something the factory had missed? That is where the real tension begins. Ferrari was the first Formula One team to run at the Madrid. That gave the team a unique advantage. Real information from a circuit every rival still understood through maps and simulation. Ferrari could feel the surface. It could study the braking zones. It could learn how the track changed direction. It could discover whether the corners felt tighter, faster, or more difficult than expected. But being first also created a major problem. There was no Formula One reference. No previous race. No old setup. No historical tire data. No rival lap to compare. Ferrari had information nobody else possessed. It also had uncertainty nobody else had to solve. If the rear of the car moved unexpectedly, was the SF-26 unstable? Or was the new surface offering less grip than predicted? If the driver corrected the steering, was the front refusing to respond? Or was the ideal line still being discovered? If the braking point changed, was that caused by the setup? Or had the simulator simply underestimated the corner? One movement could have several explanations. And Ferrari had to separate them. That is why one smooth lap was not enough. One corner can mislead. One run can flatter the car. Fresh tires can hide a weakness. A favorable wind can improve one section. A careful driver can make an unstable car look calm. Ferrari needed patterns. Did the same behavior appear again? Did a setup change create the expected response? Did the driver report the same feeling on the next run? Did the sensor data support what the driver felt? Repeated behavior creates evidence. And evidence is what Ferrari desperately needed before Spa. Because only days earlier, Lewis Hamilton had already experienced how quickly the car's strongest performance could disappear. At the British Grand Prix, Hamilton took sprint pole. For that session, the SF-26 gave him what he needed. The balance worked. The confidence was there. The connection between driver and car looked powerful. Then the setup direction changed. Hamilton later said his magic disappeared. That phrase is more important than it sounds. It does not reveal one exact technical setting. It does not identify a wing angle. It does not explain the suspension. But it tells us the relationship between Hamilton and the car changed dramatically. The performance did not necessarily leave the machine. Hamilton lost access to it. And that is one of the most dangerous problems a Formula One team can face. A driver cannot use grip he does not trust. He cannot attack a braking zone if the rear may move without warning. He cannot commit to a fast corner if the front sometimes responds, and sometimes refuses. He cannot apply the power early if the balance changes halfway through the exit. So the driver begins protecting himself. A slightly earlier lift. A slower turn into the corner. A delayed throttle application. One extra correction. None of those moments looks disastrous. But together, they can destroy the lap. That is why Ferrari's biggest issue may not be finding speed. It may be keeping the car inside the conditions where that speed exists. This is called the operating window. The idea is simple. A wide operating window means the car works across many conditions. Hot track, cool track, fresh tires, used tires, heavy fuel, light fuel, changing wind, different setup choices. A narrow operating window means almost everything must be perfect. The tires must be at the right temperature. The ride height must sit in the correct range. The aerodynamic balance must remain in one precise area. The driver must approach the corner in a specific way. Move slightly outside that window, and the performance disappears. It is like balancing a glass near the edge of a table. When the glass is safely in the center, a small movement does not matter. When it is close to the edge, one tiny touch changes everything. Ferrari may already know where the fastest version of the SF-26 lives. The frightening question is whether that area is wide enough to survive an entire race weekend. And Spa will test that question brutally. Spa does not ask the car to do one thing well. It asks the car to do almost everything. The SF-26 needs low drag on the straights. It needs stability through fast corners. It needs strong braking confidence. It needs traction. It needs to remain predictable as the track rises, falls, and changes direction. Ferrari cannot maximize all of those things at once. More wing creates more grip. But more wing creates more drag. Less wing improves straight-line speed. But it can make the car nervous through the faster sections. A sharper front end can improve rotation. But it can make the rear harder to control. More rear stability can give the driver confidence. But it can also make the car reluctant to turn. Every setup decision gives something. Every setup decision takes something away. That is normal. The danger begins when one small change creates a much larger loss somewhere else. And Hamilton's British Grand Prix experience suggests Ferrari may already have felt that danger. The car reached sprint pole. Then the magic disappeared. That does not prove the SF-26 has a fundamental flaw. Ferrari may simply have moved away from a strong baseline. But the difference between those two possibilities is enormous. A wrong setup can be reversed. A deep design sensitivity may require development. If Ferrari's Madrid data showed the car reacting logically, then the British Grand Prix could be viewed as a wrong turn. Painful, but correctable. Ferrari could return to the known balance. Make smaller adjustments. Protect the characteristics Hamilton trusted. Give Charles Leclerc room to move the car toward his own preference. But if the same sensitivity appeared at the Madrid, the concern would become much deeper. Then Ferrari would not be dealing with one bad setup decision. It would be dealing with a car that may only perform inside a very small range. And Spa could expose that weakness immediately. The long straights would punish excess drag. The fast corners would punish instability. The braking zones would punish hesitation. The changing weather would test whether Ferrari can keep the tires and balance inside the right window. One small mistake could spread across the entire lap. That is why Ferrari's first Madrid laps were more than ceremonial. The team was not simply introducing Formula One to a new circuit. It was investigating whether the SF-26 responds logically when reality begins to challenge the simulation. That process is called correlation. The word sounds technical. The meaning is simple. Did the real car behave the way Ferrari predicted? When the answer is yes, the engineers gain confidence. They can trust the simulator. They can prepare setup changes with greater certainty. They can design future upgrades knowing the factory tools are pointing in the right direction. But when the real car and the simulation disagree, doubt spreads. Was the setup wrong? Was the model wrong? Was the track surface different from expectations? Was the driver still learning the layout? Was the limited filming day program hiding part of the story? One unexpected reaction can create several investigations. And every investigation costs time. Ferrari cannot afford to arrive at Spa still asking basic questions. The team needs a clear baseline. Hamilton and Leclerc need confidence early. The engineers need to know which changes are safe. And Ferrari must decide whether to chase peak performance or protect consistency. That choice could define the entire weekend. The fastest theoretical setup may not be the strongest setup across qualifying and the race. An aggressive balance might produce one spectacular lap, but it could become unstable as the tires wear. A calmer setup might sacrifice a small amount of peak speed, but it could give the drivers more confidence through changing conditions. One option creates a higher peak, the other creates a stronger average. And across a full Grand Prix weekend, the stronger average may be far more dangerous. Ferrari's filming day may have provided the first clue about which direction the SF-26 needs. Not the setup that looks fastest for one moment. The setup that remains understandable when the conditions change. Because a car that responds logically gives the team options. A car that changes personality gives the team warnings. And somewhere inside those first moderating laps, Ferrari may have learned whether the SF-26 is a flexible platform or a fragile one. If the car matched the simulation, repeated its behavior, and gave the driver confidence without sacrificing speed, Ferrari may have found the foundation it needs before Spa. But if the same instability returned, if the data refused to match the prediction, or if every improvement created another weakness, then the filming day may have confirmed Ferrari's deepest fear. The speed exists. The problem is controlling it. And the next stage would reveal whether Ferrari left Madrid with genuine understanding, or only another glimpse of performance that could disappear after one wrong move. Then Ferrari reached the part where the first impression had to survive a much harder test. Comparison. Because one lap can look clean for reasons that have nothing to do with a breakthrough. Fresh tires can make the car feel sharper. A lighter fuel load can help it change direction. A favorable gust can improve one section. A cautious driver can make an unstable car look calm. That is why Ferrari could not simply look at the SF-26, see a smooth run, and declare the problem solved. The team needed to know whether the behavior could be repeated. Again. And again. That is the difference between a promising moment and a usable result. A real improvement leaves a pattern. The same front response. The same rear stability. The same confidence under braking. The same predictable balance as the driver returns to the power. When those signals keep returning, engineers begin to trust them. But when the car behaves differently every time, the entire direction becomes harder to believe. And this is where Ferrari's situation becomes more alarming. The SF-26 may already have enough speed to produce a spectacular lap. Hamilton's sprint pole showed that. The question is whether Ferrari understands how to recreate that condition without losing it during the next setup change. That is not a small detail. That is the difference between finding performance and controlling performance. Imagine opening a safe with a combination you discovered by accident. The door opens once. You know the valuables are inside. But unless you understand the exact sequence, you may never open it again. Ferrari may have faced that exact problem after the British Grand Prix. The performance appeared. Hamilton felt the connection. The car responded. Then the setup moved, and the safe closed again. Madrid gave Ferrari a chance to study the combination. Not through one dramatic number. Through cause and effect. Make one adjustment. Send the car back out. Study the response. Return toward the previous setting. Check whether the original behavior comes back. That process is slow, but it is powerful. Because it shows whether the car reacts logically. And logical reactions are everything. If Ferrari adds more front response, the driver should feel the car turn earlier. If Ferrari protects the rear, the car should remain calmer under braking and acceleration. If Ferrari reduces drag, the straight-line performance should improve without creating a larger problem through the corners. But a fragile car does not always behave that way. One adjustment helps the front. The rear suddenly becomes unstable. The engineers protect the rear. The car refuses to rotate. They recover the rotation. The tires begin to suffer. One solution creates another problem. Then another. And by the time the team understands what happened, the session is over. That is how race weekends disappear. Not through one dramatic failure. Through a chain of small reactions. Ferrari cannot afford that at Spa. The long lap makes every wrong direction more expensive. The changing conditions can make one answer useless only minutes later. The high speeds magnify instability. The straights punish drag. The fast corners punish hesitation. And the setup compromise is so severe that Ferrari must know exactly what it is willing to sacrifice.